Yeah, he's it's one of the reasons why they moved to London from South Africa.
Yeah.
So a little bit too isolated over there.
She's on the road for Shabbat.
Yeah.
Wherever he's working, Colombia or New Jersey or whatever.
It's not easy, that's for sure. That is for sure. Okay, I think we are just about ready to get started.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
All the best.
Actually, my birthday is coming up. When is it coming up? It's coming up soon. Not today.
It's not today.
Not today. It's the Hebrew birthday is the 23rd of Shvat, which is, so today's the 14th. So 9 days.
Okay. Okay. We are preparing for it.
But I consider the whole February my birthday. This whole
Okay, great.
yeah, I'm ready to party. Trust me. Yeah, but thank you, Mariana. Great to see you. Ellen, great to see you. Ray, great to see you. Alex and David and Joy and Fran, great to see our online crew and of course our in-person crew. Good to see you guys. By the way, I keep on saying this. Best breakfast in Atlanta. I don't know where else are you going to get this incredible spread. Welcome to Hampton Inn. This is more like the Four Seasons. I don't know.
And Kabbalah.
Hampton Inn and Kabbalah. That's it. We are not fooling around over here.
I hate
Okay.
to say it, but breakfast is getting better than the class.
I know, right? Listen, I don't mind. This is like the holy grail of breakfast where we're not sure if it's the breakfast or the class that everyone's coming to. This is definitely not a bad idea.
Yogurt and granola.
It used to be, honestly, it used to be like Kabbalah. Sorry, it used to be coffee and like a bagel. Now, look at that thing. We got a yogurt bar. We have two types of hash browns, onions.
They make me get the sausage.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Good morning. All right.
You didn't get breakfast?
I made breakfast for I came.
That never held me back. Two breakfasts, whatever. Look at it as an opportunity.
And your wife doesn't even know about this one.
Exactly.
I make no breakfast.
Your secret is safe here. All right, let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kabbalah Cafe. It's great to see everyone on this fine Sunday morning. Okay, we have a lot to talk about. And the subject today is we're calling it Letters of Light. And what we're doing is we're going to look at some of the secrets behind the Hebrew letters. Now, I wrote this in the email, and I'm hoping everyone's getting the email. If not, let me know after the class, and I'll make sure that you get on the email list. But when it comes to Hebrew, there's something unique. Now, the truth is,
I'll watch it in the kitchen.
let me do a quick preamble before I jump into Hebrew. Every language is powerful. When I say powerful, every language, the construct of letters and the construct of words has its own power. So that's a general aside that we will get back to today, which is very important to our conversation. But that being said, within the family of languages, Hebrew stands out as very unique. What's unique about Hebrew? Well, number one, we know it's the language of creation. It's the language that Hashem used to create the world. In fact, if you look at the beginning of the Bible, beginning of the Torah, it says, and God said, let there be light. There was light. God said, let there be a firmament. There was a firmament, right? So it's God said, and there was. Vayomer Elokim, and God said, let there be, and it was. And according to Kabbalah, when we read in the Torah that God said, let there be, etc., and there was, whatever that is, it's not that we're just reading a narrative. God actually, in whatever way, spoke creation into being and utilized the letters of those words of that creation to create it, which means, again, usually we think of language as a response to existence. In other words, something exists, we need some form to term it, we need to call it something, conceptualize it, so we call it a cup, we call it a bagel, because it exists, so we need to name it. But this is the opposite. In order to exist, it has to be named. then naming brings it into existence. This is not a reactive language. This is a proactive language. See the difference? So every other language in existence is a reaction to what exists. It exists, let's call it something. But Hebrew, or Lashon Kodesh, or the Holy Tongue, is a proactive, creative language. It's a language of creation, number one. Number two, Hebrew was the original first spoken language by human beings. Not only is it the language of the creator and creation, it's also the first language of human beings. Famously, the Torah tells us, because we heard it from our parents, who heard it from their parents, who heard it from their parents.
So not from archaeological.
That's a really good question. I'm going to throw this to Sam. Sam, do you have any research on this? Sam's your guy when you need research on historical stuff. Have you ever encountered anything?
Well, Mel Brooks in the 2000-year-old man.
There you go. Anything that has
First started out with rock language, and then they eventually worked their way to Hebrew.
good. So if Mel Brooks says it, it's got to be true. So okay. So here's the thing: language. Oh, so how do we know this? It's our tradition. What's
The
it?
first written language was cuneiform, came in right about 6,000 years ago, right about the same time
Interesting.
after the Garden of Eden.
That's whatever he said is another word for Hebrew. I'm kidding.
But
So
it was the
first written
that
language.
we have records of.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, they did have paper to write on.
Right.
Came after.
They were texting. They started off texting and then they lost the tablet and whatever. Hey, Anthony, good morning. By the way, Anthony is the man behind the magic. Thank you, Anthony. Actually, by the way, next level, hold on. I just want to say this. Next level is where we have table service for the class. That no, I'm not putting that on you. No, he's got to run. But I'm just saying that would be higher for more people. And this is going to be this is all right. We're going to get like
Anthony, can I get a late checkout?
all right. So back to our story. So it's not only the language of creation, it's the first human language. Now, the way we know this is from the Torah. The Torah says at the end of the Torah portion of Noach, by the way, you want to speak about a Torah portion that has a lot of drama? Noach.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Bereshis, creation, that's also a lot of action. I mean, literally all the action. But then you have Noach, you have the flood and the saving of mankind. You have the adventures of Noach and his three sons, and that gets a little interesting. And then at the end of the Torah portion, you have the story of the Dar Haflaga, of the generation that built the tower. They built the tower up to the heaven. And the Torah says, what were they doing? Well, it's a little vague what the Torah says. It says they built the tower up to heaven. God was unhappy, and so he confused them. And according to the way we understand it, he confused their language, which means that initially they were speaking one language. Everyone was speaking the same language on the same page. What happens is God confuses the languages, i.e. he diversifies. So now this one doesn't understand that one, and it creates a diversification. According to many commentaries, what was going on in this whole drama, the story is very bizarre, very strange, very hard to figure out what's the issue, what's the beef. What does God have a problem with people building a tower, right? It sounds great. We'll all be unified. What could go wrong? God doesn't like it. He doesn't destroy them. He just diversifies. So again, according to one of this a commentary or two, the issue was that they were so singularly focused that it came at the expense of diversity. You know, we believe in one God who creates a diverse universe. God likes diversity. If God didn't like diversity, he would have created one thing. The fact that God creates so much means God loves diversity. God loves difference. God loves this and that and the other. When people, oftentimes we make a mistake, and I'll just bring this like down very practically. Oftentimes we make a mistake and we think that if you don't think like me, then there's a problem with you, right? If you don't believe, if you don't worship like me, if you don't, whatever it is like me, then, that's no good. It also be the same way, my way or the highway. It's like, whoa. The only singular force in existence is God. Everything else is meant to have diversity. So the other person's allowed to think a little bit different than you. That's okay. Not only okay, it's a good thing. God loves diversity. So when they're building this tower, which means they're doubling down on this idea of it's not only unity, but of singularity, God says, that's my space. I'm echad. Y'all, all y'all need to like divide and conquer and proliferate. We want diversity. It's about diversity. Anyway, the point is that Hebrew begins the first human language. Hebrew is very special. Now, you probably encountered some of these ideas in different contexts. I want to put them together here in one place, just so that we have clarity on this. The Hebrew language, again, it originates as a proactive as opposed to a reactive language, but the language itself is super, super unique. And it's unique in its shape, in its meaning, its numerology, in its nikudot, in the mechanism that the vowels are indicated, the crowns on top of the letters, etc. There are multiple dimensions to the Hebrew language, which means this is a new point that I'm adding right now, which means not only is Hebrew a proactive as opposed to reactive language, but moreover, the Hebrew letters themselves carry meaning. No, I've never seen anyone suggest that the letter A in its TP-like shape with a little cross brace, that A is significant in its shape. I've never seen anything. Maybe I'm missing a whole genre of research on this. I've never seen, and I've never seen, well, maybe it exists, numerology when it comes to other letters, English. Maybe it exists.
Doesn't English though come from Greek, or Latin,
English word comes from German.
from German?
I'll tell you this, it's all Greek to me. But anyway,
The Greek comes from Hebrew.
Greek comes from Hebrew.
Alphabet, except it changed. They
Oh.
got a hey and a good, but they couldn't
Alphabet,
say that was too religious. It was no.
Really?
Alpha,
That is God's
alpha,
name.
beta.
Well, interesting. Interesting. I didn't know that. All right. So the Hebrew letters, unlike other letters that don't necessarily have significance in the shape, the meaning of the letter A. Why is it called A? Like the word A.
Something's gotta come before B.
What? Right. But I'm saying A. What is this like? A. What's A? I'm just trying to think like A. Say it again. Oh, interesting.
We pronounce it odd
Depending on the
we
right
have the vowels. but
on the vowels,
we
right?
have the vowels.
I mean, the word for the first letter, that A, it's like, hey, what are you doing? I don't like, what does it even mean? I don't even know what it would mean, right? Right. Hey, but in Hebrew, the letters themselves are significant. So what I want to do right at the top is I'm going to pass this around. This is, as you'll recognize, just a quick chart of the Hebrew letters. Now, the Hebrew letters can be written different ways, just as a word of note. This is as the Hebrew letters are written in a Torah. These are called the block letters of Torah. There's the script. You can write Hebrew with script. When I say script, it's kind of like a shorthand writing. But this is the formal way in which it is written in a Torah scroll or a mezuzah or paratefillin, etc. I will pull this up on the share my screen and make sure that this is up. Give me a quick second. Hold on.
When you say
Right. Things like that. That's what.
Yeah,
Look at the Torah. That's what the letters would look like.
this is the way that letters will look like. Exactly. It will look like, why can't I find this? It will look,
In a sitter, it won't have the crowns, but basically the same.
yeah. Can you guys see this online?
Yes.
Give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, amazing. Yeah.
Did Adam actually name the animal or did you
No.
According to our tradition, he named the animals, and that actually, I'm sorry I missed that out. That's actually one of the other references. The Torah says he named the animals. He gave the animals their names. It's a biblical verse. It's not even a medrash. And according to Kabbalah, it all makes sense. Why? Because he was able to perceive. He didn't create the animals. God created the animals, and creation happens through language. But Adam was so perceptive. He was able to see the spiritual energy. When he saw a creature, he said, oh, I know the letters that are associated with that flow of energy. And he knew the name of the animal. That's how perceptive, right? Kulolev, all heart. He knew the energy, he could see the energy. It's like the matrix, right? He could see the letters, the code that's coding this into being. Boom, I got this. I know what this is called. That according to Kabbalah, that's why the Torah tells us this. Because otherwise, why is it germane? Why do we need to know this? It's telling us the greatness of Adam and how spiritually great he was, which is the interesting precursor for the sin. Despite how great he was, look what he did next. Next scene, there he is chomping down on that forbidden fruit. And the message there is, you can be extremely lofty and extremely bright and extremely spiritual. That does not eliminate temptation for the forbidden fruit. That's all. It all comes with the territory. All right. So back to this. So we have here a chart of letters. And what we're going to do today is the first, I don't know, maybe first 2 or maybe first 4 letters. We're not going to obviously do the whole thing. It's going to take way too long. But let's start. And what I want to do is share with you some Kabbalistic secrets of the Hebrew letters on 3 dimensions. Number 1, the shape of the letter. That's, in other words, what are the messages, or what's the meaning of the shape of the letter? Number 2, what is the meaning of the what's the second one I'm going to do? I'm going to do the gematria, the numerology of the letter. And number 3, the meaning of the letter's name. Remember I told you that A doesn't really mean anything, or B doesn't mean anything. It's not like a little flying insect that we got, right? But in Hebrew, the names of the letters are significant. So is the numerology, which we'll talk about, as well as the shape. So let's jump right into this. So the first letter, which is the top, Hebrew is read right to left. So the top right letter is the Aleph, right? That is the Aleph. Now, what is Aleph? What does it signify? What does it symbolize? So straight off the top, or straight at the top, the mystics tell us Aleph symbolizes the creator. Aleph, Aleph symbolizes the creator. Aleph is a euphemism for God. Now, if you look at the shape of the Aleph, you want to break it down. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here on my screen. Otherwise, y'all can hold it up closer to your face. I'm kidding. You don't have to. You can just look at it. Aleph is comprised of 3. The scribe writing the Aleph will make 3 distinct markings. There's a little, if you notice, there's a yud on the top. Yud is like a little bit of a, right, little yud. There's a backwards yud on the bottom. You notice that?
Yes.
2 yuds and a vav in the middle. Straight line in the middle. You have a point on the top, a point on the bottom, and a line in the middle. The Alter Rebbe once said the following. He hired his teacher for his son. And he told the teacher, when you teach my son Aleph Beis, so make sure you say the following. Aleph is comprised of 2 dots, a dot above and a dot below. There's God, and then there's the soul. And what connects us with God? The line in the middle. What's the line? The line of faith and the line of, good morning, and the line of commitment. The line of faith and the line of commitment. So what does that mean? It means that we are connected to God by virtue of the fact that we believe in God, and that we commit to doing what God wants us to do. That is a relationship. That is what constitutes our relationship with God, our commitment and our faith. So you have the dot above, the nekuda Eiben, the nekuda unten, the point above, point below, and a kav and a line in the middle. That is what makes the Aleph. All right. So that is a little bit about the shape. So the shape signifies God, and also in the secrets of the shape, you have God in us. Now, Ray, I heard you mention,
too.
what's the numerology? What is the numerology of Aleph? If you start off with the first one, what is Aleph? One. Yeah. Oh, 1 second. What does Aleph signify?
1.
One. So what does that signify again? Hashem. Hashem. God is one. But it also signifies something else. Take a look at the Aleph as I described it before. You have 2 yuds and a vav. Count up the numerology. Yud is the 10th letter.
26.
Yud and yud is 10 and 10 is 20, and the vav is the 6th letter, 26. You know what 26 is?
Yud K Vav K.
The numerology of God's 4-letter name, Yud K Vav K, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. It's uncanny. It's unbelievable. Whether you consider the Aleph to be simply an Aleph and 1, it refers to God. Whether you break it down and it's 3 smaller components equals 26, it's still God. Still the numerology of God's essential core name. No matter how you slice it, the Aleph is referring to God. What's the meaning of Aleph? So we did the shape. We did the numerology. Let's talk about the meaning of the word Aleph. What does Aleph mean? It's not like A, B, C. That doesn't mean anything. Aleph means something. Aleph. What does it mean?
First letter of the Hebrew alphabet.
Yes, also, right. But what does Aleph mean? Aleph, aluf means a master or a chief. Aluf means a master or a chief. Also, ulfana. Ulfana or ulpana. You ever hear the word ulpan in Hebrew?
Yes.
What's ulpan? It's a school or a teacher, right? Ulpan is a school. Ulfana is a school or a teacher. And of course, it's if you switch around Aleph, if you take the Hebrew, the Aleph, and you read it backwards, it spells the word Pele, right? Aleph backwards is Pele. Pele means wonder. So let's break all three down. Aluf, it's kind of like the English word aluf, right? Aluf means that one that's greater than, that's higher than. But aluf in Hebrew also means master chief. So that's a reference to God. Ufana is as God as it is referring to God as our teacher. So there's God as creator of all of this. God as master of the world. And then there's God as creator as he gives us, God as teacher as he gives us the Torah. There's God as creator, God as teacher, vis-a-vis Torah, giving us instruction and guidance for life. And then there's Pele. Despite, good morning, despite all that God has created and God has taught us, God remains above us. God remains a mystery. God remains wondrous. Pele. You guys with me on this? Three different dimensions of how we relate to God. We relate to God as a creator, as a teacher, and as way beyond anything we can understand. These three stages or three dimensions of God are reflected in the three stages of history. In the phraseology of our sages in the Talmud and the Midrash, it's the three sets of 2,000 years. It says initially there were 2,000 years of chaos, then 2,000 years of Torah, and then 2,000 years of redemption. So you have 2,000 years of chaos, i.e. those are the first 2,000 years of human life, when things were interesting, right? When life was, I don't know how else to refer it, but when life was a little bit hectic and chaotic. So there was a creator, but we didn't understand our role in life. And then we got the Torah. The Torah was given in the year 2448. So roughly 2,000 years in, we got the Torah. And so then we have 2,000 years of Torah, and then begins the 2,000 years of redemption. Again, we begin with God as creator, then God as teacher, and then God as Pele, redeemer, wonder, miracles, messianic era, etc. A perfected world, the world that knows God in his full glory. All right, that's a little bit about the secrets of Aleph. Make sense? I know we're going through this pretty quickly, yeah? And
There's not gonna be a test, is there?
yes,
Because everyone's
yes.
taking notes. I'm
No,
getting scared.
there's a
I don't
test.
wake up in the middle of the night thinking there's a.
You're gonna panic. No, here's it is. If you want another bagel, you have to come in with your quiz filled out to get at least an 80%.
My Gemara teacher told me just come to class and he'll give me a 65.
There you go. I have the same policy.
Just come to class.
I picked up on that. All right. So basically, these are some of the many mysteries that are embedded in the Hebrew letter Aleph. The point of this is, just so you know the point. The point is to appreciate that the Hebrew letters are not just random symbols. The shape is significant. You look at the shape, a dot above, a dot below, line between, yod, vav, which the numerology is significant, and the meaning of the letter is significant. Now let's turn.
I'm gonna just play devil's advocate for a
Sure,
second, okay?
sure.
Numerology, I get Aleph 1, fine.
Yes.
What I don't buy into so easily is the Yud, the upside down Yud, and the Vav. Because I could take any of these letters and say, oh, that's a this is a this, and that's a that.
It is.
Then they're going to.
And we will.
But
And
what
we
I'm
will.
saying is
Okay.
what came first, the letter or the explanation of the letter? Because in Kabbalists could have looked at the letters and say, oh, 2 Yuds and a Vav.
I know what you're
If
thinking.
I was doing 2 Yuds and a Vav, Aleph would look different because the Vav would be up and down.
I hear you. It's a good question. So these are layers of meaning that the mystics have taught us about the letters. As to the question of which came first, that's beyond my pay grade. But I think these are cool inferences, cool things that we can see within the letters. And whatever resonates, and
Just like,
we'll stick with that. We'll celebrate our victories.
just, did you see the picture of the alphabet in the Jewish star?
No.
Every letter of the alphabet, you know what I'm
Oh,
talking
it's
about.
in the Jewish star.
Every
Interesting.
letter of the alphabet appears in the
Interesting.
Jewish star.
Yeah. All right, let's look at the letter bet. Because we're just getting warmed up. So the letter bet, of course, is the second letter. So on the top row, second from the right, is the letter bet. Now, bet is also vet, depending if there's a dot, but that's all about the nekudot. That's all about the vowelization, whether it's a vit sound or a bit sound. Nonetheless, we'll call it the letter bet or bays. Letter bays is all about us. If aleph is about God, the letter bet is about us. There are three. So let's talk about the shape for a moment. There are three. Sure. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. The mystics will talk about what the significance of the nukudot, the dots are. In fact, it's wild is every nukudah, every dot also has a numerology. Yeah. So the dot, like the one dot, I believe is 10. Every dot is 10. So if you have a chirik, which is one dot, or a dot in the middle of the letter, it adds another 10. Underneath the letter also would be 10. 2 dots, shva, would be 20. A segel, 3 dots, is 30. If you have 2, I forget what a comments is. It's 6 and 6. No, it's 6 and 10, because a comments is really one line horizontal, right, and then a little dot underneath it. So it's a yud.
That's not, that's kind of.
It's Kabbalistic.
I've heard that. Is that not common in Gematria?
It's all in Kabbalah, where it discusses layers of Gematria. Yeah, it's not. I would say it's not the normative Gematria. But then again, when you look in Gematria, when you do research on Gematria, you realize that there's at least 5 or 6 or 7 different systems of Gematria. We typically know the 1 to 10, and then 20 to 100, and then 200 to 400, and then you're done. But there's many other ways of calculating of numerology. And once you get into that, it's wild. Like you can do numerology of the letters spelled out. Like if you have a letter, like Aleph Bet spells the word Av, father. So you could do Aleph Aleph plus Bet is 1 plus 2, which is 3. Or you could say Aleph is Aleph Lamed Fe, which Fe is 80, Lamed is 30. That's 110, 111. Oh, I should have said that. Also, Aleph, the numerology of Aleph. I know I'm speaking very quickly, but one more thing about numerology of the Aleph, which I just realized, is Aleph. If you do the numerology of the spoken letters of the letter, in other words, the letter itself is Aleph, which is 1. You look at the shape; it's 26. But if you articulate it, Aleph, that's comprised of 3 letters: Aleph, Lamed, and Fe. The numerology of which is 1, 1, 1, 111. Again. 1, 1, 1. Marsha. Yeah.
Excuse me.
There's bet and bet, and then there's
Yes.
sin and shin.
Right.
Because of the dots. So
Yes.
I was just asking those particular letters, about 3 or 4 letters that have got
Pay and the Fe.
yeah, exactly. So that have got the dot to change the calculation, if you like, of the letter. Do you need anything into that?
For sure. So each letter would be a unique thing. At the core, there's the core letter with the core shape, with the core numerology, and the core meaning. But once you modify it, like the shin or the sin, one way or the other way, there's definitely meaning behind it. I don't know that I have at my fingertips that meaning, but there's definitely meaning behind it. It's not just willy-nilly, one or the other. But we'll just focus on the answer is yes, but I don't know that I have anything to share meaningfully on that. But we'll just look at the core letter bet or bays. It's got 3 lines, if you notice, right? It's got a horizontal at the top, horizontal at the bottom, and a vertical on the right side. According to our sages, and this is not necessarily Kabbalah, well, okay, before we get to our sages, the Torah begins with the word bet. Torah begins with the letter bet. Bereshit. Be, right? Begins with the letter bet. Bereshit. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So the world, the universe, creation begins with a bet. Our sages tell us that the bet corresponds to 3 directions: east, south, and west. And I know what you're thinking, but isn't that north, east, and south? Well, it is when you look at it this way, but if you would rotate it, right, you would have east, south, and west. According to the Talmud says, Ruach Sephonis, the northern wall, is not filled in God's world. Now we know this physically. There's no landmass at the North Pole. There's land masses on all directions, including the South Pole. We call that Antarctica, right? The one space in the world that doesn't have any landmass is in the north. So the Talmud teaches us that God created, right, land. God created sides, all sides, except he left the north open. And what's the message? We're meant to fill it in. No, we're not meant to like fill it in physically, but it means that God didn't create a finished world. God didn't create a world that's complete. God created a world in which there's still more to do. So sometimes we look at the world and we're like, wow, this place is broken. This place is messed up. This place is cold and dark. It really needs a lot of fixing. Who made this anyway? The answer is God made it intentionally with one side unfinished for us to finish it. It's like, imagine you give a kid a puzzle and you're like, finish it. I'm like, well, it's broken. It's not. That's the whole point. The whole point is finish it. You get the honor, the merit, the thrill, the exhilaration, the challenge, the opportunity, etc., to finish it. And that's what God gives us. He could have created a finished world. In fact, he created finished worlds. We call that heaven. All those are done. It's complete and it's perfect. God created an imperfect world. In the language of our sages, the northern end is open. What was that show? Was it Northern Exposure? Was that what it was
Northern
called?
Exposure.
Northern Exposure. Straight up, Northern Exposure. It's open. Little did they know what the real meaning was.
But you see, I've got a problem.
Yes.
Give me a definition, give me an explanation as the letter lies. Don't put a vav this way, don't turn the letter this way, don't, you know what I'm saying? It's a bet, it's a bet.
Chef.
That's what Torah Shabbat Peh is all about.
Right.
It's north, east, and south.
There you go. All right.
The
Listen,
west is open.
you're
The
looking.
west was the frontier land. Back in the 1700s, they taught that it was the west that was open.
Okay.
No,
So
I
whatever,
knew there was something there.
I listen,
They kept going, they were gonna hit China. They didn't know they were gonna.
whether
They
the,
thought they were going to India or China.
here's the point, whether the west is open, whether the north is open is less relevant. The point is that there is an opening. God created this world, but God creates it unfinished. And the point is not that God messed up or God couldn't finish it. God left it for us to allow us to be partners in creation. Now, the numerology of the letter Bet is, of course, 2. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, and 2 again signifies us. You have God, and now a +1. So initially you just have God, and now you have God plus us. That is 2. The letter Bet is also when you read it, right? When you read it, when you pronounce it, Bet is Bet Yud Taf. You with me? Bet Yud Taf. The numerology of which is Taf is 400, Yud is 10, and Bet is 2. The numerology of which is 412. 412 also happens to be the same numerology as the Hebrew word Ta'aveh. Taiveh, as we would say it in Hasidic pronunciation. Taiveh is a pleasure, a desire. Taiva is a pleasure, a desire.
Can you do a taiva for somebody else?
Taiva is a good deed, but taiva, it's a
Taiva versus
ta'aveh. It's a desire. It's something that you derive pleasure from. You want it because you'll derive pleasure from it. God, Taf, Aleph, Vav, Hey, Taveh. So God desired to take pleasure when we are partners in creation. Again, the letter Bet is all about us and our work, the work that we do. So it's number 1 signifies the end that's open. We have to fix it. We have to finish the work of creation. Number 1. Number 2, it symbolizes 2. God plus us. We're in a partnership with God. Now there's two factors. There's two partners in this. And the third thing, the numerology of 412, which is the way we pronounce the letter bet, is the idea of pleasure and desire, where God desires to take pleasure from our work in finishing this world and making it a better place. All right. Tough, yeah, because tough is 400. You understand? Yes.
Is there any connection there?
That's the meaning of the word. We're doing three things, right? The shape, the numerology, and now the meaning. And I'm about to say, bet is bayit. What's a bayit?
Said that was my the tie into my
100%. Yes, 100%. What's bayit? Bayit is house. Once again, our purpose is building a home for God. I'm sure you've heard this being said countless times. Building a home, a house, a home, a space. What's a home? A home is a space where you feel comfortable. What's the difference between your home and someone else's home? In someone else's home, you walk in, you hang up your coat, and you use, whatever. It's like you're. But in your own home, all bets are up. I'm kidding. I'm hopefully we're respectful in our home. But like you're a little bit more. You're at home. You're comfortable in your home. Hopefully, right? You're comfortable in your home. It's your home. God created this world unfinished, put us here, and our job roughly is to make this world, first of all, starting with ourselves, a place where God feels comfortable. That's the whole entirety of our purpose. That's what Mashiach is, a space in which God feels comfortable in this space, where God can feel at home, where God can kick off his shoes, as it were, grab the OJ from the fridge, as it were, take a swig, as it were, straight from the bottle. Again, not physically, but spiritually. This world is a space where God feels comfortable. I can hang out here. I don't feel like uncomfortable. I don't feel unwelcome. I don't feel like I'm on edge. Like y'all are doing your stuff, but now I'm God also here. Hey, can I invite it to the party? No, God feels at home. That's what our role is, and that's why bet, which signifies our job in finishing this creation, partnering with God in creation, making the world a home for God. That's why bet is bayit. Same word, bet and bayit. It's literally spelled the same way. Bet you're tough. It's bayit. It's a house. All right.
Your wife know
That no.
that you drink the orange juice from the
No, speaking for a friend, obviously.
It's not you.
Absolutely. Deny.
Let's see it with your own eyes. right?
Exactly. Deny. All right. We're up to letter number 3. Should we do a little bit more letters? Yeah. You guys enjoying this? All right. Why not? Let's keep on going. Gimel. I'll tell you, we're going to combine Talmud, Gemara,
Question.
and
by the way,
Kabbalah,
can you
yeah.
go back to bet for a
Sure.
second?
You bet.
Why does bet only have part of a crown?
That I don't know. I would have to look a little bit more research into that. The crowns are significant, but I haven't done the research on the number of crowns. There's also some different traditions with that, but that is highly significant. In fact, we studied recently in our JLI class, the Wednesday class, that Moses, when he went up to heaven, he saw God tying the crowns to the letters, affixing the crowns to the letters. He said to God, what's with the crowns? And God said, there will come a time where a man named Akiva ben Yosef will come along and expound mounds and mounds of laws of halachot from the crowns. And Moses says to God, I got to see this guy. Who is this Akiva ben Yosef? You know who he was? Rabbi Akiva. So God, again, we read this in the first lesson of our current course, God transported him to the future, 1,000 years later. And there he is. He finds himself sitting in the 6th row of the lecture of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva is teaching Torah, expounding on all these ideas, and he has no clue what's going on. Moses himself has no clue of what Rabbi Akiva is teaching. He's never heard this stuff before. Moses, the master of Torah, the one who heard it from God, is now scratching. He's puzzled as to what Rabbi Akiva is even teaching. And he started feeling bad, like he's supposed to be Moses and he doesn't understand this Torah lesson. So until he heard a student ask a question to Rabbi Akiva and ask, where do we know this from? Rabbi Akiva answered, we got all of this from Moses, from Moshe. Then he felt better. What's the meaning? The meaning is there are these crowns and other things that are like little hooks, little seams in the narrative, little
Snippets.
more than snippets. It's stuff that makes things that make you go, right? Isn't that a song also? Right? It's like, it makes you wonder. It's like, what is that? Why is that? You begin looking a little bit closer. Once you look a little closer, you start realizing it's like in design. You don't want things to look too good in design. You want things to be a little bit off.
Is that true, Norm?
To catch,
He's the king.
so I defer to the king. But you're looking to catch the eye, something a little bit, like a little wrinkle in whatever it is, like a little something.
To draw your attention.
To draw your attention. I remember seeing in a magazine, it was Wired, it's a technology magazine. They were writing how their typography, like how they lay out the physical magazine. They don't do it in a clean fashion. Because if it's too clean, your eye gets tired reading. It's too boring. It's too symmetrical. The idea is to be a little asymmetrical, creates a little bit excitement, a little bit of a thing. So you have these crowns, you have this, you have that. These are little points of asymmetry to get the attention and to open up a window into.
Like if you listen to a person speaking in monotone, just become
What
very dull.
do you mean by that?
Right.
Yeah, right, exactly, right.
But
But
it's some accents, you have to have some.
But that's also why, for example, the Torah uses different names for God in the Torah. So you have scholars that will say, oh, why modern scholars that will say, why the Bible uses different names for God? Because it was written by different people. And then it was cobbled together by some other editor.
It was too stupid to figure out.
To like do copy and paste, to do like control all.
Say this, why am I putting two of the names together sometimes?
But you understand how,
In the year 12, it was on the bestseller list.
yeah. But you understand how from an authentically traditional Jewish Jewish place, how ridiculous that is. The whole point of the different names of God is to have us look a little bit closer. Whoa, why there does it use the 4-letter name of God, Hashem, and there it uses Elohim? Why by creation? I said, Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, Elohim created. And Hashem is only introduced in the 2nd chapter of Genesis. What's going on?
Together.
Yeah, Hashem Elohim. Why? What's going on? The whole point is not like, you understand what happens when you say, oh, it's just editors, two authors? You undo all the depth. You wipe away. It's like, oh, that was just a mistake. Instead of saying, let's look deeper and let's realize the layers of this, we just wipe it away with one brushstroke and say, somebody wasn't paying attention. They cobbled it together. Anyway, all right, rant over. Gimel, let's do a quick,
So the letter for the crowns,
yes.
that letter is always written the exact same way. Are there any exceptions?
So we would have to ask a sofer, a scribe. There is one here in the building, Rabbi Krasansky, who just moved here.
Okay.
He writes,
But he doesn't check.
He doesn't check, but he
You gotta
writes.
get him to check.
He's bring a guy to check. He knows a guy. We were just speaking about it yesterday. Whatever, he's got. So we can ask him right after the class. We'll track him down. We'll find out, because I'm also curious about that. My grandfather was also a sofer, a scribe.
Jewish one?
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting. He got into Safros, scribery, which is not what it's called, because he was an artist. He was like a natural artist. He would create the most beautiful hand-drawn, hand-painted ketubot, marriage ketubot. Gorgeous, like massive artwork with like birds and flowers and chuppah, like just the most incredible stuff, handmade, using like different colors, like black with gold highlights, just the most incredible stuff.
3 of those.
On to Gimel's 3. On to Gimel. All right, let's bring it back in. So what is Gimel? So Gimel is, according to one way of understanding it, Gimel is all about teaching us all about the art of giving. Gimel is about giving. Let's take a look. The Talmud says that if you look at the shape of Gimel, you might conjure up in your mind the image of someone running. Could be. You see like a torso with a head, and the legs are kind of in a running position. All we're missing for the Heisman is a little, is the Heisman running? I don't know, a little like hand football, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, right, a little arm. Could be anybody. So Gimel, the Talmud says, it's not even Kabbalah. This is straight up Talmud, which is, So the Talmud says Gimel is a person running. What are they running to? They're running to give. They're running to give. And because we know Jeff likes the letters that are composite of other letters, the Gimel is a composite of a Vav and a Yud, right? Look, you have a Vav, a little slanted Vav, and then a Yud, which is at the bottom. So you have a Vav and a Yud, and we'll see soon. We'll see soon what that means, but the Vav is focused on self, the Yud is focused on the other. It can also look like a camel with a long neck, depending on who. This one doesn't really look like a camel. Do you see a camel there? If you squint, say a few l'chaims, maybe it'll look like a camel. But right now, I don't know. But this is what the
Maybe turn it sideways.
Gimel also is related to the Hebrew word gamal. You know what gamal means?
Camel.
Camel. That's why I'm saying camel.
Nourish and raise.
Also, yeah. Right. Yeah. Biyom hi gamal. Right. Weaning and raising and yes. So let's
It's also an Arabic name.
Nice. Okay, let's take a look at the numerology. The numerology of Gimel is 3. 3 is radically different than 1 and 2. 1 is singularity, 2 is diversity, and what's 3? 3 is unity. Now understand this: you can't have unity without diversity, because if you didn't have diversity, you don't have unity. You have singularity. What's the difference between singularity and unity? Singularity means it's the only one. It's the one and only. Like when we talk about God, one and only. Unity is when I have diversity, and then I bring them together. That's what we call unity. So 1 is singularity, 2 is now diversity. So 1 is just 1, 2 is split, 3 is where they can come together in a third point. When we say Oseh Shalom Bimromav, right? We take 3 steps back. We turn 3 different ways. Shalom, peace, is synonymous with the number 3. Peace is 3. 1, you can't have peace with 1. There's no peace. It's just 1. It's just there's no reconciliation with 1. It is what it is. It's just the 1. 2 is diversity. 3 is reconciliation and unity. This is true also in the process of giving. There's giving in a way of 1, giving in a way of 2, or giving in a way of 3. Giving in the way of 1 means actually not giving. I'm holding on to my money. That's 1. It's mine. 2 is I'm giving in a way that still differentiates me and the other. So there's me, the giver, them, the recipient, and they remain distinct. But giving, because Gimel is about giving in a way of 3 means that I'm merging the 2 together. I'm giving in a way that's kind, compassionate, loving, empathetic, caring, where I make the other feel welcome and feel connected with me. So Gimel is not just giving money, but it's sharing a connection. You with me on this? That's the power of 3. 3 is always about an empathetic connection and about really a deep connection between the 2. So
You need all 3.
you need all 3. Absolutely. You need my resources, the other one to receive. But if I just give in that way, then it's me versus him or her or whatever is me versus the other. And that's it. Think about teaching. Maybe it's another way of explaining it. Teaching is also the same thing. So there's a person that has the wisdom, the person who's receiving the wisdom. So that's 1 and 2. And when you have 1 and 2, again, there could be a breach between the 1 and 2. The goal of teaching is to teach someone the goal of teaching is not just to give them information, but to give them the tools to be able to learn on their own. And that's what 3 is. 3 is imparting the tools, is merging the 1 and the 2 together, where now this student has the capacity to learn. So for example, when you're teaching Talmud, you can teach students to learn Talmud in a way where they always will need to be taught Talmud, or you can teach them to learn Talmud, they can learn on their own now. And now they can open up any book and they can learn it on their own. That's the mixed metaphors. That's the holy grail of teaching. The holy grail of teaching is where you teach the student the skills, you impart the skills to be successful. And now the student is motivated, perhaps, hopefully, ideally, to learn on their own because they have the capacity. So that's why Torah is also associated with the number 3. Remember, the Torah is given in which month?
The third month.
Third month.
Because it's associated with 3.
There you go. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. And it says, the Talmud says it's given the Torah of 3, which is comprised of Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim. The Torah is comprised of 3 dimensions. Is given to a nation of 3, Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, priests, Levites, and Israelites. In the 3rd month, right, through the 3rd child of his family, Moses, right, Miriam, Aaron, Moses, you have 3s are wild. So this idea of 3 is all connected with Torah, because Torah is all about learning and study. It's not just about learning or teaching, it's about fusing a connection. The same thing is true with Torah. It's not like God gives us the Torah. So there's God And then there's us, and we're studying God's Torah. It's about bringing us close in a relationship with God through Torah. That's the magic of 3. So again, 1 is singularity, 2 is diversity. Even if there's a connection, but it's still diversity, they still remain separate. 3 is fusing the 1 and the 2 together. That's the power of 3. And that's the ideal way, the greatest way to give. So Gimel means nourished, and it means weaned, as Sam said a moment ago, right? Nourished and weaned. Because what does it mean to wean a child? It means that you've raised them, whatever way, where now they can go off on their own. Before, you needed to feed them. Now they can eat on their own. That's quite the milestone. You with me on this? In other words, before it was 1 and 2. You fed, they ate, and now they can eat on their own, like learning on their own, like teaching a person how to fish, right? All of these things is about now stepping up, and you are now on the level of the one who gave because they brought you into that space. They gave you the tools to succeed. That's
How
Gimel.
about Gemilut Chasadim?
That's the Gemilut Chasadim is, similar thing, acts of kindness. It doesn't have to be about money. It can be about anything. But it's about really giving with dignity, or sharing with dignity, in part teaching with dignity. And when I say dignity, I mean giving the other the tools that you have. Sharing with others, not the outcome of the tools that you have. Because I can learn Talmud, so I know what it says. So I'm telling you the outcome of the tools that I have. No, it's giving, it's replicating the tools within you. That's a much deeper level. Okay, I hope that's coming through. Gamal is also a camel. What's a camel? A camel can travel long distances because it's stored. I used to think it stored water. It's not really water.
Because it's still water.
It stores like fats and
Fat,
other things.
yeah.
But the point is, it can go long distances because it has the resources. When we teach our children, or we teach anybody, right, in a way that's skills, they're learning the skills, and they can go off on their own. When we educate, not only information, when we educate in a way that we're imparting not just ideas or whatever, but we're imparting skills and those genuine values, then they can go off in long distances and they will be okay. So that's the bottom line. That's the goal of 3. So Gimel teaches us how to give in the proper way. Gimel is about giving, but it's not just giving. Give. It's about giving in the proper way, in a higher way, in a way that is truly noble and remarkable, and not just giving in an easy way that doesn't create transformation. Dalid, very quickly, where are we here with time? Okay, Dalid is about how to receive, the art of receiving. If Gimel is the art of giving, right, which is a very important art, Dalid is the art of receiving. Many of us have a challenge receiving. Somebody asks us, can I help you? And your automatic response is, oh, I'm okay. Walk into a store. Can I help you? No. Oh. You know why? Because that would mean I'm vulnerable. No, I know exactly where the thing that I have no idea is. Right? We say that all the time. Because we don't want to admit that we have no clue. I walked to the store for the first time. I'm looking for this specific thing. Right? Can I help you find something? No, I'm just looking. Meanwhile, inside, I'm like, I actually could use some help. But is it pride? Is it ego? Maybe. Or just we have an aversion to receiving help. Not everybody, but many of us do. Some of us do. So if you look at the letter Dalet, the shape of the letter, if Gimel is running, Dalet is receiving. So it's interesting. Dalet is turning away from Gimel. You notice that? It's like the face is turning away from Gimel, because to receive, again, by nature, naturally, it's difficult. Difficult to admit vulnerability and to receive. It's easier to be strong, to play macho. I got this. I got this. By the way, it's if you give in a healthy way, which is with true love, it's easier for the recipient to receive. And I'll use the example of GPS, Waze, my preferred GPS app, navigation app. You ever notice how, guys in general don't like taking directions or asking for directions?
Right.
Whatever, just a stereotype for no reason. But when it comes to Waze, a lot of guys are okay with that. So, and it's really not gender specific. One thing I noticed about Waze is the following. When it comes to ways, what if you make a wrong turn? You missed. I'm not doing this on the 285 all the time. You notice the 285?
But today you don't.
It is at this point the 285. You every 2 weeks are changing something. Every the 285. They're somewhere in an office. They're just like, how can we confuse people today? And no, none of that. We're gonna make it.
Civil engineers that are doing this.
We have very trained professionals in watching.
A good place.
Yeah. There's no doubt. There's no doubt it's going to be amazing. Whatever. However, I have my doubts.
By the time it's amazing, there'll be more traffic and they'll need to do it again.
I just want to say this. There is a certain point where you're trying to get from somewhere to here where you have to go left and then quickly make a right to that exit 3 and then make another quick right to the next exit 3, which is, and you're swinging through 3 lanes, you're crossing over 2 lanes of traffic, and there's people merging on that side. And it's why am I mentioning
This
this?
is a test, by the way. If you can't pass that
Life-
test, you can't live in Sandy Springs.
Apparently,
Go live in the.
I'll take the local roads. But here's, I don't even know. I know what I'm talking about this. What happens when you miss, what happens when you miss the turn? You know what Waze says? It's just like recalculates. I don't know if it makes a sound or not. And then it just spits out new directions. Very calmly, no judgment. In fact, last time I missed it, there's also another point where you come up, I don't even know what it is, Johnson Ferry or something, and there's 2 lanes and one goes straight, but the other one goes onto the highway again.
Yes.
And I keep on doing that highway. I keep on going on the highway.
Wait.
I find myself in the 285 again and again and again. But hold on, what's the point? I'll tell you my point.
You're not alone.
When you miss the exit,
400 South.
when you miss the exit in life, Waze calmly says, got a plan B. No judgment, no animosity. No, I can't believe you did it again.
Your
1 second.
Waze doesn't say nothing?
Waze doesn't say, I can't believe again for the 5th time. Unbelievable. Waze doesn't say that. Why? What's the point? The point of this is there's no judgment. When Gimel is giving without judgment, Dalet is more open to receiving. So Dalet has a little leg on the top, a little opening to receive, right? Its leg is kicked out a little bit to receive. But there's also, I said the Dalet is facing forward. There's also another intimation in that, and that is that even a receiver has to in turn pay it forward and give. In fact, in the laws of tzedakah and laws of charity, it says that if you're giving someone tzedakah, you should give them more than what they need, so that they can in turn share with someone else. Because part of being a human is to give. So if you give someone only what they need, you're depriving them of a human need to in turn give. So you're supposed to give tzedakah a little bit more than what they need so that they can give that little more to someone else. So even the Dalet, who's the receiver, has to give to someone else. Dalet is 4, numerologically speaking. 4 is, of course, the 4 matriarchs. Matriarchs are our mothers, the mothers of the Jewish people. And when in Kabbalah, masculine and feminine are divided roughly along the lines of giver and receiver. Of course, both men and women are givers and receivers, but generally speaking, we have this division, masculine, feminine, Gimel, Dalet. The meaning of Dalet. So Dalet is related to the word Dal, which means pomper, Dalet, door, and Delisani, lift me up. And the way that these 3 work together is when we recognize our own limitations, Dal, we recognize our humility, our vulnerability, our limitations, then we're open to receiving from God. That opens the door for blessings. So Dal opens the Delet, the door, and that Dilitani lifts me up, lifts us up to the greatest heights. All right, so this is, good morning. It's in the daily, the shtibel, yeah. So what's going on here is a quick insight into the first 4 letters. There are 22 letters in total. Each letter has mysteries and layers of mystery. We only covered roughly the first 3 layers, which is the shape, the numerology, and the word itself, the word of the name of the letter itself. But you should know that letters have incredible power. So with this in mind, let's go now to our text inside. We're going to spend just a few minutes inside our text and see how all of this connects with our discourse, which is speaking about the power of souls and bodies and lights and vessels and all of that stuff. All right, so please take and pass, and let's get Kabbalistic over here in our text, Whispers of Creation. Okay, give me a quick second. Let me find the page. We are going to start with page number. Give me a quick second here. Page number 4. Oh, look at that. That is not that. Thank you.
You don't get cold.
No, that was for my kids. All right, page 41, I believe. Yeah, page 41. We're talking here about life and death, which is not at all about Hebrew language, but you'll see it's going to connect soon. Okay, let's get a running start. I'm going to open up, I'm going to share my screen here so that folks online can join me in this. And let's start. Bottom of page 41, where it says the body's lofty light. You see that? Okay, here we go. This also explains, in other words, understanding the nature of light and vessel, that light of the soul by nature trends upward, but because of the power of the body, which is analogous to the power of letters. So I think just one thing that I want to come out of all that we talked about letters before. When you look at a Hebrew word, it means something, but what we saw today is that the letters themselves carry their own light. The class was called Letters of Light. I'm sorry for not contextualizing the bigger picture before, but I'll just do it very quickly now. When you put a bunch of words, a bunch of letters together and make a word, Kelev, it means dog. But you know what? The letter Kaf has its own power. Lamed has its own power. Bet has its own power. Every letter is a universe unto itself. Every letter has its own world, has its own light. So in addition to carrying a specific meaning, when you in a combination, each one has almost like this infinite, within its own way, like an infinite potential. So the light is like the meaning of the word, whereas the body is the container of the letters. And just like it is with letters, that almost the power of the letter is even greater. It's like, you know what the phrase, the sum total is greater than the individual parts? Here it's the opposite. It's almost like the individual parts are really potentially more powerful than the sum total, because the sum total, the sum total is limited into that one. It's boxed in, but each letter itself is again a whole world. So there's power when we think about energy and container, light and vessel, soul and body. We often think of the light and the soul and the energy as the higher dimension, and the container, the body, right, as the physical, the lower part, higher and lower. But Kabbalah is always flipping things around upside down. It's the container that's really higher. It's the letter that's really higher. It's this body that's really higher. So again, let's jump back in. This explains why against your will, you die. That's why the soul doesn't want to leave the body. Notwithstanding that the soul by nature would want to go back up to heaven, but the soul has an aversion to leaving the body. Why? Meaning that page 42, that the soul does not want to leave the body and ascend on high, although by nature that is its essential desire. So essentially, naturally, the soul wants to ascend. But on the other hand, it doesn't want to ascend. Why not? It's Meshuggah. Does it want to or not? Here's the answer. For it desires the revelation of light that comes about through the body, which is a revelation of an extremely lofty light. This is especially true when it has refined the body and the animal soul, through which the light of the body's source shines more apparently. In other words, the body contains an even brighter light than the soul. It's in that space of darkness or container or vessel, or in this case, letter, that the greatest light shines. Let's continue. In summary, the cause for the drawing down and descent of the soul's light and life force to animate the body is the body. It's the body that sucks the soul in a good way. It draws it in. For the body's limbs draw down the soul's vitality, causing it to manifest itself within the body to animate it. Thus, through the body, the soul gains light and vitality. The body enhances the soul. It's wild to think about this. The body enhances the soul. Let's continue. And here he gives an example. For precisely by virtue of its manifestation in the body can the soul attain an actual experiential knowledge of godliness, which it does not possess before its manifestation in the body. Before a soul comes down into a body, the soul knows God theoretically, spiritually. But when the soul comes into a body, into this world, it can know God experientially. It can see God in the stuff around us. It can feel God in the events, and seeing God, feeling God shape all that happens to us by virtue of divine providence. Then, before it comes down into a body, the soul's knowledge of godliness is limited to knowledge of the existence of God. The soul knows that God exists alone. That's the extent of its knowledge. Whereas by its manifestation in the body, it attains an empirical knowledge of godliness. This is similar to the concept of seeing godliness, as explained elsewhere, and we explained last week. Let's continue. Similarly, by its divine service and fulfillment of Torah and mitzvot, while clothed in the body, the soul later in the Garden of Eden attains knowledge of the essential quality of godliness. In other words, although the soul dwells in the Garden of Eden before it enters the body, so one second, the soul is in heaven, in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, comes down into a body for 120 years, goes back up where? Back to the Garden of Eden. That sounds like a waste of a round trip. You went down to go back up to the same place. He says, no, you're not going to the same place. You're going to a much higher dimension, because before you didn't see God. But when coming down into this world, you've seen God. And now when you go back up, completely different experience, right? In other words, although the soul dwells in the Garden of Eden before it enters the body, it is then in a state of knowledge of the existence of God. It only knows that God exists. But after its ascent to the Garden of Eden, following its sojourn in the body, it reaches the state of knowledge of the 43, the essential. And he quotes another discourse that speaks about this. The reason for this, again, page 43, is the superior nature of the body, whose root is far loftier than that of the soul. The body comes from a greater place, a higher place, a deeper place, a more luminous place than even the soul. Again, I cannot emphasize how bananas this is. We're saying that a body is greater, spiritually more loftier than the soul. Who says this? Souls are always greater than bodies. Bodies are physical and souls are spiritual. Not here, not in Kabbalah. Bodies have greater light. The higher you are, the lower you fall. The greatest light is in the darkest of spaces. Yeah.
The soul going to the body
Is an upgrade.
the perspective change, and when it goes back, it's seeing the same, I guess, for lack of a better word, phase, but just differently.
Same light, but now it gets it.
Hey, listen,
There's no, once I there's knowing it exists, and there's knowing what it is that exists. There's Yedias Hametzias and Asagas Hamahos. That's the Hebrew, what he's talking about here. There's knowing that, like you and I could know that electricity exists. How do I know it? Because I see its results. I plug something in, it works. I know that, but do I know what it is? Personally, I don't. So I'm saying you can know that something exists, and then you can know what it is. And those are two different experiences. The soul above absolutely knows that God exists, but what God is, who God is, how God works, soul doesn't know.
Which might be like the images that have multiple meanings or different tells based on how you look at it. Let's say, I think more like the duck and the rabbit, that when you first look at it, it's a duck, you have
Right.
a slight perspective change, it becomes
Right.
a rabbit, then it's become both at the same time. So it looks like if the soul goes in the body, you can now see the full.
It's like the dress. Remember that dress?
Yeah.
like
What
going,
color is the dress?
it's like going to Miami Beach. If you've never been, you know what Miami Beach
But
is.
now you've
You've heard about
experienced.
Miami Beach.
Good.
Once you go to Miami Beach, when you come back, you're a different person.
Absolutely. Good. That's a good example. Now let's continue, because here we bring it back to letters and language. This is why we started with language, and now we're back to speech. Back to speech. From all of the above, middle of 43, we will understand the same phenomenon as it appears in speech, in language, communication. For the drawing of the light of the intellect into speech is caused by the letters. Listen to this. The fact that ideas are drawn into language. Who did that? We always think that it's the ideas that are forcing themselves into language. He says, no, it's the letters, the body, the container that's so dynamic, it's pulling ideas into it. You with me on the 180-degree thing? We typically think that you have an idea and you shove the idea into language. He says, no, the language pulling the idea into it. Again, I'm going to read that line again. For the drawing of the light of the intellect into speech is caused by the letters. because of their original source, which transcends the light. The letters are hot. When he said the light, meaning the light of the intellect, the idea. What's greater, the idea or the length, or the letters that you? Obviously, the idea, not in Kabbalah. The letters are higher. For just as it is back inside with the soul and the body, that the soul stems from a malay kol almin, but the body stems from sovev kol almin, which is even higher. So it is with the light of the intellect and the letters of speech, which are the vessels for the light. It's the letters, which are the vessels, seemingly passive containers. Those passive containers, those receptacles, those random boxes that you put ideas into, i.e. letters, are actually way more dynamic, way more bright, on a much higher level than even the ideas. And here he breaks it down mystically. Let's keep on going for another minute. The light of intellect stems from chachma, intelligence, which is merely an aspect of light and illumination from the soul. Even the koach hamaskal, the source of ideas in the mind, is only an expression of the soul, i.e. it is the soul drawn forth into the act of thinking. However, the source of letters, by contrast, not the idea, but the letters, the language, transcends the light. As explained in Torah Kodesh 5, the letters stem from kadmut haseichel, the origin of the intellect. So an idea, I'm going to use spatial miming, which has no bearing on reality, but I'm just like physically acting it out. This is what do they call pantomiming, or little Kabbalistic charades here. So ideas come from chachma, creative ideas from the koach hamaskal, the source of chachma, whatever. But the letters, language itself, comes from kadmut haseichel, that dimension that precedes intelligence. The letters, which you think are just boxes that you put ideas into, just how you communicate. But that's not. The letters don't have their own intelligence. Oh yeah. Not only do they have their own intelligence, they're actually more intelligent than intelligence itself. It's actually higher than that. It may, and he goes off on a parentheses over here. And this is the last thing we're going to do is this parentheses. We're going to go through quickly. It's very mystical. He says it may be that this is the level. He's trying to break down where everything is lining up in Kabbalistic terminology. So maybe that this is the level of the depth of chachma stima'ah. Maybe this kadmut haseichel, this level that transcends intelligence, maybe it's also called chachma stima, hidden chachma. This level transcends the root of the extension of the light of revealed chachma. So you have revealed chachma, revealed wisdom, which are ideas, and then chachma stima, the level that transcends that may be where the letters come from. Silukutei Torah, etc. Pardes, which is a mystical work, Kabbalistic work, cites an opinion he attributes to the Kabbalists that Keter is called Seichel Kadmon, though he apparently disagrees. It can be said that when Keter is called Seichel Kadmon, refers to the inner aspect of Keter, i.e. Atik, that's on page 44. Again, he's just breaking this down. If you're familiar with these, with the map of spiritual dimensions, the question is, where can we attribute, where can we position? So ideas come from this dimension, the letters come from that dimension. He's just trying to figure out, reconcile based on different sources, where exactly you can peg the letters as originating from. But that's already advanced and spatial. Maybe. But here's the point. Here's the bottom line point. Just like we said with a body and a soul, that the soul, despite its spiritual dynamic power, once is drawn by the body because the body contains an even greater depth of light, so too it is with ideas and language. Language itself contains a greater light than the ideas. And it's in the language where the magic happens. We typically think that language, communication, speech, is just a passive carrier. It's like a cup. You pour water into the cup, and now you can transfer the cup, you can drink it, whatever, but it's a passive keli, it's a passive vessel. It doesn't do anything, it doesn't enhance. You pour water into the cup, it's water. You pour tea into the cup, it's tea. Coffee, it's coffee. The cup doesn't change it. When it comes to letters, language, speech, it does. And that's why we know ultimately that when you have an idea in your head and then you share it with someone else, you've utilized the medium of letters, you understand it better. You feel it more strongly. Why? Because the letters enhance the experience. So, in summation, what we did today, did a lot of things today. We looked at Hebrew letters, Although what we've said now about language and communication is not exclusive to Hebrew. But we start off with Hebrew because Hebrew is a great example of where you see the light in the letters themselves. Irrespective of how you combine them to share an idea, the letters themselves have light. The truth is in every language. The letters, the act of communicating, the act of articulating, that itself has tremendous power, even above and beyond what you're specifically communicating. So in the final analysis, once again, we've encountered this truth of Kabbalah. Let us never take for granted the power of the body. Let us never take for granted the power of communication. And let us utilize both wisely. Let us utilize our physical experiences for the right purposes, and let us utilize our communication for healing, healthy purposes as well. Thank you very much for joining me today for Kabbalah.
Amen.
Hope you enjoyed it, and looking forward to
I
seeing
have a question, Rabbi.
Yes, Dr. Maxey.
So does that mean that once I'm going to express the idea, I'm going to use these letters in this language, then it seems to me it places a greater importance on the letters and the way we combine the letters, i.e. the words and the language we choose
Yes.
to express that idea. So that's one. Two, can you speak a moment for oral versus written language? And so, body language, intonation, all of those other things that go with spoken language. And again, Hashem spoke the world into existence. What does Kabbalah, is there a thumbnail of what you can say that Kabbalah would comment on the intonation, the body language, that aspect of the physicality of taking that idea and expressing it through language?
Yeah, absolutely. So two very good points. So number one, the language we use matters, right? We said in general, the way we speak and it's not only what we say, but how we say it, that really enhances the idea and enhances the experience. If you speak words of love, then you'll feel more love. If you speak words of anger, you'll feel more anger. But we've said that in the past. So the language that we use is very important. It's almost like we say that if you're in, if you're in a negative mood, turn on the music and start dancing. Right? I think, wasn't there a song? Play a happy tune or sing a happy tune, or there's some old song. Anyway, whatever it is. The idea of kind of like moving into that space is also true with language. If we find ourselves like intentionally putting ourselves in positive language, it creates a massive change. Famously, the Rabbi was a great model of this, in that he typically didn't use negative terminology. So he would speak about, like he always, like speaking with doctors, he would say, it shouldn't be called, like in Hebrew, a Beit HaCholim, a house of the sick, but Beit Refuah, a house of healing. It's a completely different way to look at it. What's a hospital? Where sick people are, or people come to get healed? You're gonna say, well, it's the same thing. They come and say, well, what are you calling it? Because language matters. And the way so to your first point, Dr. Maxey, what you choose, the language that you choose, since it's not just an idea, but it's the language matters and creates its own energy around it. So if I'm always talking about a Beit HaCholim, a place where sick people are, as a doctor, I might think of this individual as sick, as opposed to someone who's ripe for healing. It creates a different dynamic, because again, the letters shape ideas. The language itself shapes ideas. So Rebbe was always modeling. Also, the Rebbe was not into, even in English, the Rebbe didn't like the phrase deadline. Deadline. It's like, whoa, deadline. That sounds a little dark and scary. Due date, which is about birth, right? When you have a time, I don't even know how to be careful with the language. You have a time that's coming up. This project is due by, okay, that's its due date. That's when it's born. It's its deadline. It's when it expires. I used to work for Kahat Pub. I still do, part-time, like, just in my free time, for Kahat Publication Society, the publisher.
Free time?
When I have free time. I didn't say I have free time. It's like in my free time that I don't have right now. Kahat Publication Society, the ones that publish these books and this, and I remember learning from my mentors over there, because they had direct communication with the Rebbe on things, and the Rebbe would edit things in Hebrew, Yiddish, and English as well. So, and the Rebbe would take out the word undertaking. It's like, this is a massive undertaking. Nope. Nope. Don't use that word. Just has a negative, because undertaking, it just has a negative, it has a negative connotation. The Rebbe had an aversion to anything negative. And the Rebbe based it on the Torah. The Torah talks about how in the ark, they brought in the pure animals and the animals that were not pure. But it's instead of saying impure, it says that were not pure. It goes in a roundabout way of stating it. And the point is, be careful with language. So that's point number one. Point number two, which I'm forgetting. What was your point number two? Your point number two was
Body language intonation when
yes.
speaking.
So the
words.
direct, so the original is speech, because again, God speaks into creation, and this is all about divine speech. Literally, the title of this book is Divine Speech. I called it Whispers of Creation, but it's speech. But the same thing would be true with written language. When you write, so you're taking an idea and you're writing it down in the act of putting it into the letters, which we now understand the letters are even greater than the idea themselves. The letters actually clarify the idea and enhance the idea. So the art of, or the act of articulation enhances the experience in all 360 degrees. Is that true with body language and other forms of communication? Maybe to a certain degree, but I think there's a power in letters themselves, and letters could either be verbalized or written. So for sure, those two. Text message, I don't know, I'm kidding. But certainly like written and verbal letters, things that have letters, there's other forms of letters. Even thought has letters, but that we're talking about like articulating it in that way. All right, hope this makes sense.
Rabbi,
Yes.
You talked about the speech and the letters and that sort of thing. So it's obviously important on the balance that we say the words.
Yeah.
How does that relate to?
It's great. It's literally in this discourse. It's in the same text that we're learning, but a little bit further back, he talked about, because of the powers of articulation, that's why it's so important to verbalize davening the tefillah, and not only verbalize it like mumble, but to say it in a way where we're hearing it and we become aware of it. He says, Kol ma'arer kavana, the voice, sound awakens kavana, intentionality, mindfulness. So it's you could either be mindful and then say the words, or just start saying the words and it'll kickstart the mindfulness. It's a hack. It's a life hack. It's like that's the fifth Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab. The fifth Rebbe's discourse. We could do a separate course on that. Yeah, I've done series in the past. We'll do one. We could do one on numerology. That's a separate topic. This one is a combination. Shape, numerology. It's about the letters. The numerology one is, I mentioned before, there's different methodologies of numerology. That's a fun thing where we use real examples. We're going to roll out all this stuff. It's coming soon to a Torah Center near you.
Well, there's two Zions with an ark. And if you turn it upside down, it's a vessel to receive.
Good. See? You're getting a hang of it. You're getting the hang of it.
So I love seeing how some of the ideas of limit philosophy were espoused on here beforehand. So what if the philosophy changes how I look at things? Martin and Lewis to talk about how the medium is the message. That instead of looking at the message, is this an abstract that has to be constructed by the medium? He mostly focused on, let's say, different text. There's spoken video, but then also the language that all ideas have to be constructed.
I like that.
That it's a looking, I think, idea flows through the languages. The language has flows up into the ideas.
I love that. The medium is the message. That is great to see you. Till next time, come on in. Bring it in. We're gonna hug it out. Pleasure.
Sent a picture of the shit.
Oh, nice. Oh, good. Good. Give regards to everybody. Safe travels. See you when you're back. The medium is the message. See, using that, I like that terminology because I'm talking about ideas and letters because I'm framing it this way. But I like the fact of seeing this through your lens in other areas. The message is the idea. The medium is those are the tools, and we always think that the tools don't matter.
I want to be getting the person to that idea. Now they're moving more to like video instead of text. that the way we're spreading ideas is probably even more closer to the oral tradition than it was in the
Right.
last 200 years, that it's been mostly text.
Written. Interesting.
Rabbi, when you
Kabbalah of TikTok. We should do that. Maybe that's what this is, the Kabbalah of TikTok. Without us even knowing it, we've now, maybe the Kabbalah of spy balloons. We have to like now think about all these things.
when you were talking about Gibble,
Yeah,
reconciliation, community, combining singularity,
Yes.
diversity.
yes,
I was thinking the world right now is stuck on number 2, diversity.
yes,
That's our God.
yes.
Not bringing it all
There's
together.
power in diversity, but the ultimate is, see, the difference between healthy diversity and unhealthy diversity is I recognize that I'm unique and I celebrate that. And I recognize that you're unique. And then I recognize that together, so first of all, our own uniqueness all stems from a common source, which is God. The one God creates diversity. That's one of the God's magic tricks, right? God is one, but he can create so much diversity. He wants the diversity, and I honor the other one. Like, unlike, like it says, Rabbi Kiva's students died because they shalom nagu kavah zelazeh. They couldn't respect each other because they had different opinions. That's where we're stuck. One of the great things about the Talmud, one of the great things about the Talmud is you have diversity of opinion, but you know what? They're all on the same page. They're all printed on the same page. And that's the key. The key is not to undo diversity. It's not singularity. We don't want to go back, but it's number 3. It's the unity within the diversity, which, as you said very articulately, I think, is due to a respect and a recognition. That's the key ingredient.
And we're hating.
If you don't look like me, if you don't think like me, then you're bad. And right.
Particular group is on top right now.
It's just a matter of, it's the importance of recognizing that diversity is honorable, it's good, it's intentional, and it's divine. It's the diversity that we have is divine.
I had a finish to this, that when you say unity versus singularity, that unity is the area between all the various points. 3 points, whether it's 3 points is that triangle, or if you have like 7 points, where the area between all the various points. And that,
The common ground in between.
and so like if you have like, then you can think of an image, so like however many sides you want on your shape, that space between
Right.
is the unity that takes all the various points.
I like that. So you're not focusing on the edges, you're focusing on the ground in between.
Okay, the other
It's good.
Is the other thing that's going on in the world is globalization, but not in the sense that everybody's unique and that's okay, and there's diversity,
Mhm.
but we should all be the same.
Right.
Under-
Yeah. So that is something that is not. Yeah. So that is not so. Right. So that's not a. I once heard this expression: life is like chicken soup and not like a cholent. What's the difference? What's the difference? Comes to cholent, everything eventually tastes the same. Eating a cholent, yeah, it might be a bean or a potato or a piece of meat, but it has all the. But chicken soup, I don't know if it's accurate, but this was the way I once heard it. But chicken soup, you have the broth, you have the this, you have that. Cholent comes a little bit too much too together, too unified, whereas chicken soup, things remain distinct. So I think that I like what you're saying in that the goal of making everyone the same, that was the Dar HaFlaga. That's the generation that God said, no, you guys are going about it wrong. We're not supposed to be the same. We're supposed to be different. Here's what the problem is: we've swung different directions. We started off by noticing differences and saying, oh, if you're different, then you're worse than me. Well, that wasn't good. So we overcorrected by saying there are no differences, but that's also not true. Why can't we have the truth of all and the best of both worlds? There are differences, and I still love you, right? You're different, and I respect that, and I love that. I love that about you. That's a healthy approach. Not that if to love, because understand this, if to love you, you have to be like me, you know what that means? I don't really love you. I love me. If to love you, you have to change, or I have to change, that's not really love. It's not really respect. I love you when you're like me, or you love me when I'm like you. What kind of love is that? So everyone has to be the same for love. That means we're still not getting it. The whole point is you're different. I love you. The Kutzker Rebbe once said, it's very sharp. If I am me because you are you, and you are you, if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I, and you are not you. In other words, if I am I because you are you, and I change to be like you, or you change to be like me, then I'm not me, you're not you, then we're not. But if I am I because I am I, and you are you because you are you, then I am I and you are you, and now we can get together. See, if two individuals can be in a relationship, but one person starts changing to be like the other one, okay, but then one day they'll wake up and say, what happened to me? That's not a healthy thing either. Because if the only way that they can love you is when you're not you, then guess what? They don't love you. That sounds kind of obvious, right? If for you to be loved, you got to be someone else, then that's not love or respect for that matter. Anyway, all right. So that's I agree with you. All right, we'll close it out because I know we're getting late, but thank you all for coming. There is a new Kabbalah class that we're starting tomorrow night with Rabbi Tzvi Freeman. If you don't know who Rabbi Tzvi Freeman is, just go to Chabad.org or just Google Rabbi Tzvi Freeman. He is amazing. One of the most creative Kabbalistic scholars that I know in existence today. He's incredibly gifted, incredibly creative. 5-part series called An Insider's Guide to the Universe. He is exploring, also so super cool, he's exploring the Kabbalistic text, Patach Elio, which was written by Elijah the prophet. Elijah the prophet, you know, from the Seder, cup of Elijah, from the bris, the chair of Elijah. Elijah wrote Kabbalah, and he's going to explain it. 5 Mondays beginning tomorrow night, 8 p.m. live and on Zoom. Join us. You will not regret the decision. It's going to be unbelievable. All right, 5-part series, the Torah Center ATL.org/universe. Join us. All right, we'll see you guys. Have a wonderful day. Mariana, Dr. David, Dr. Maxi.
Thank you.
Shavua Tov.
Beautiful
Good to see you,
class.
Dr. Doman,
Amazing.
and Ellen, pleasure. Good to see you guys. Shavua Tov. Have a good week. See you guys.